ILTV often reports about incidents of anti-Israel bias around the world, so it may be surprising to find that some of these incidents even take place within the Jewish state. Joining us today in the studio is Eytan Meir to tell us about how his organization Im Tirtzu is combating internal BDS. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So to begin, tell us about the Im Tirtzu movement.
Okay, so I'll give a short background. Im Tirtzu is an extra-parliamentary organization. It was founded in 2006, and its main goals are to strengthen and advance the values of Zionism in Israel. Now, since then, it has evolved into the largest Zionist movement in Israel with 6,000 members, and we have activist branches at 15 universities and colleges throughout the country. Now, what we say in Im Tirtzu is that there's two aspects to the movement. One is to do good, and the second is to do bad. When we say do good, we mean through volunteer work through the community, whether it's volunteering with Holocaust survivors at hospitals, trying to integrate minorities into the Israeli society, and as well as on campuses, we run a lot of activities, whether it be Zionist lectures and other Zionist programs. And when we talk about doing bad, we talk about really combating, like you mentioned earlier, the anti-Israel phenomenon within Israel. Now, most people abroad are very familiar with the BDS movement. They're familiar with all the different things all the different Israel hatred that is rampant throughout the world, but they're not really familiar with what goes on here. In the academia, in the media, in the culture, and especially in the civil society, there is a large anti-Israel phenomenon that is really taking the country by storm. If we want to focus on the civil society, we have the non-governmental organizations. Now, we have a lot of non-governmental organizations that get funding from political entities and foreign governments, such as you could basically take a handpick of all of the European states, and they'll basically be on the list. And they get millions and millions of dollars in order to undermine the Israeli democracy and to defame and delegitimize the IDF soldiers as well as the state of Israel. And it's a large portion of Im Tirtzu activities is devoted to that.
So can you give us some kind of concrete examples of this internal BDS that you're talking about and how Im Tirtzu has been involved in combating that?
Of course. I think it was a couple of months ago, there was a really large vote held by the American Anthropological Association, the AAA as they call it. And the vote was whether or not to boycott Israel, to impose an academic boycott on Israel. So what Im Tirtzu found out was that there are actually dozens of Israeli academics that sent letters to the AAA, to the American Association, urging them to boycott Israel. They're basically saying, boycott me, even though they work in Israeli institutions, they want to impose a boycott on themselves. And what we basically do is a lot of research, and we expose this phenomenon, and we go to the media, and we say, look, this is what's going on. This is insane. You have to do something about it. And then what happens is we make a lot of waves. We get the people behind us because we draw our support from the people. We are a grassroots movement. And then what happens is it gives the legislators the ability to act. After our report, there was an emergency session in the Knesset that talked about the politicization, the problems with politicization, and this problem in general of the anti-Israel organizations and academics. And through all of this, we are able to enact legislation such as the transparency law that was recently passed in Israel.
That's what I actually want to ask you about. So this bill, or now law, has just been enacted, and it's been very controversial, made big waves. Can you tell us about how your organization has been involved in getting that passed and what it's going to mean for the future of Israel?
Sure. So basically, we came out with a large campaign in the end of 2015. We called it the Foreign Agent Campaign. What we basically did was we surveyed 20 non-governmental organizations that receive a large portion or the majority of their funding from foreign governments, like I stated earlier, and we went through all their activities, all their sayings, what they said, what they do, and how they influence Israeli society. And what we found out is that these organizations are directly promoting an agenda of delegitimization of the country. And what we advocate for is, like the law says, transparency. We want the people of Israel to know who's pulling the strings behind these organizations. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to tell someone you can't get money from someone else. We don't want to shut anyone up, and they're free to do whatever they want. But we want the Israeli people to understand who's actually doing this, that it's not, B'Tselem, and it's not Shorim Shtika, Breaking the Silence, and it's not Yesh Din, but it's Holland, it's Denmark, and it's Germany, France, England even. You name it, and they're there. So it's very important for us that the people understand who's doing this.
Now, Im Tirtzu has a rather controversial reputation among a lot of left-wing parties, especially for pushing right-wing agendas. But why is that the case? I mean, why has your organization gotten so much negative feedback?
That's a good question. Well, we don't view this as right-wing at all. We view what we do as patriotism, as Zionism. The unfortunate fact is that if you're willing to speak out against an organization that defames the IDF regularly, and I'm not talking about trying to better the army as a whole. I'm talking about slandering the IDF and making up things that don't happen.
You're referring to breaking the silence.
Of course, breaking the silence, because it's the easiest example for people to understand. And when we say that, listen, what you're doing is wrong, what you're doing is bad, you have no legitimacy in Israel, you're getting money from foreign governments in order to do this, people get angry. People on the radical left get angry at us because, of course, they rather that we don't say it. They rather that we don't bring up the fact that they're getting all this money from foreign governments and that they continue to do their activities without anyone saying anything.
Why are we seeing anti-Israel bias within the country? I mean, it's an interesting phenomenon. You're talking about this and you're combating it, but why does it exist in the first place?
So there's many different theories to why it exists. The first theory is simply follow the money. If you look at the amounts of money that these people are getting, you could easily make the assumption that, okay, the more slander that I bring against Israel, the more money that I get. For example, that during the past Operation Protective Edge, this Palestinian Foundation in Ramallah, they promised breaking the silence to give them a grant if they bring a certain amount of testimonies against the IDF. I can't remember the exact number. I think they may have wanted 10 testimonies, and breaking the silence brought 60. Pro bono, just take an extra 50. So these organizations are getting money. So why would they stop if this is what they're getting?
Okay. Well, finally, I understand that you are about to head to a conference, which means you have to leave very soon,
Right.
that is being held by your organization. Tell us about that.
So the conference is the annual conference that we hold at Im Tirtzu. It's an opportunity to bring all of our activists and our supporters together. We have our farthest branches up north in Tel Chai, and all the way down south we have branches in Beersheba and in Sapir College. So it's a good opportunity for everyone to get together, to talk to each other, for our supporters to come and see who they're supporting. And we're having Moshe Aaron speak. He was the former Minister of Defense and the former Minister of Foreign Affairs. And it's just great. We have a whole list of great speakers. Just Zionists, a place for them to mingle and to get to know each other and to be proud of living in Israel and being Zionist.
Well, thank you so much for coming in, and I hope you enjoy the conference.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.